it is quite possible that I've forgotten something. Well, a little birdie did tell me that, oh, you've forgotten one of your videos regarding the previous Worthing Minis by the Sea car show. And upon realising this from the little birdie, how right was the little birdie? The little birdie was certainly very, very right. This is the last video from the Worthing Minis by the Sea 2022 car show event that took place on Sunday afternoon of the 4th of September 2022, in which I attended, as most of you might already know also, and it's generally comprised of about 3 or 4 videos originally. All were uploaded in September of 2022, but I meant to upload this in 2022 as well until I found them, which are photographs of the Worthing Minis by the Sea car show event, and there were photographs I took on my smart telephone, just to say, not from my camera recorder. It was from my smart telephone, and I was going to do a separate video of the phone photographs, Imagery Picture View slideshow, as well as the Imagery Picture View slideshow videos with the still photographs taken on the camera recorder as opposed to the smart telephone, just to say. But it was really an enchanted event. But if one could dare tell somebody about the Worthing Minis by the Sea car show event, it was certainly one enjoyment of enchanted delight, I must say. I honestly thought the 2022 Worthing Minis by the Sea car show, I honestly thought that was the first one when it took place in 2022, but when I looked it up on YouTube and all the other videos taken of Worthing Minis by the Sea car show, taken all over the years, it was taken years before 2022. It took place years before 2022, and upon learning this and finding this out, I could hardly believe it. I very honestly thought it was just a new annual thing. I knew it was going to be just a new thing that was going to be an annual running car show event. But upon learning that it's been going on for years and years and years and years and years, I was entirely surprised, yet elated at the same time. And I know I'm terribly late to upload this video, but I think that the next time I go to the Worthing Minis by the Sea car show, hopefully I'll be going there again when it takes place on the first Sunday of September of 2023, which would be Sunday the 3rd of September 2023, just to fully confirm. And what on earth was I going to say? Oh, yes. I'll try if I take any photographs on my smart telephone the next time I go to Eastbourne. No, not Eastbourne, Worthing Minis by the Sea car show. If I take any photographs on my smart telephone, I will certainly make sure to upload them. Either in September of 2023 or October of 2023, and not leave it until May of 2024, like I've done in May of 2023 for the phone photographs imagery slideshow video from the Worthing Minis by the Sea car show from 2022, when it took place that very year. So I will certainly not leave it far too late. And let's see how this slideshow starts when we start rolling it into action this very moment.
There's a tear in your eye and I'm wondering why, for it never should be there at all. With such power in your smile, sure a stone you'd beguile, so there's never a teardrop should fall. When your sweet lilting laughter's like some fairy song, and your eyes twinkle bright as can be, you should laugh all the while, and all other times smile, and now smile a smile for me. When Irish eyes are smiling, sure it's like a morning spring. In the lilt of Irish laughter, you can hear the angels sing. When Irish hearts are happy, all the world seems bright and gay. And when Irish eyes are smiling, sure they steal your heart away. For your smile is a part of the love in your heart, and it makes even sunshine more bright. Like the linnet's sweet song, crooning all the day long, comes your laughter so tender and light. For the springtime of life is the sweetest of all, there is ne'er a real care or regret. And when springtime is ours, throughout all of youth's hours, let us smile each chance we get. When Irish eyes are smiling, sure it's like a morning spring. In the lilt of Irish laughter, you can hear the angels sing. When Irish hearts are happy, all the world seems bright and gay. And when Irish eyes are smiling, sure they steal your heart away.
If somebody could dare tell anybody about this, but from my experience moment when I went to Worthing Minis by the Sea car show, it was certainly one elated delight through happy pleasure of enjoyment attending the car show itself, I must say, when the event took place. I would certainly recommend it, I must say. For those of you who are Worthing residents or West Sussex residents or even East Sussex and all that, or into classic cars or car rallies, I know David's very into them, I would certainly be recommending it, almost certainly. It's completely free to go to. It's perfectly publicly accessed by spectators going without charge whatsoever. But I'm not terribly sure as to which website you have to sign up to for if you have a mini car and want to go participate in the Worthing Minis by the Sea event whenever it takes place. I'm not sure which website you'd have to sign up your mini car you would have ownership of. I'm not sure which website you'd have to sign up to in order to be able to take your mini car to it, I'm afraid. But it's not just a car show, the Worthing Minis by the Sea event, where you take videos and photographs of all the mini cars that are visiting the Worthing Steam Gardens, where it generally takes place every year. It's also the right event of tremendous suitability for socialisation in immeasurably in the very much comparable way to the Eastbourne Magnificent Motors event and all the other events I've ever attended in the last nearly 2 years, or in the last 5 years since attending Worthing Bus Rally and all that. So yes. Worthing, Minis by the Sea, certainly is it most enchanted and worth going to. And I met many people. Some of the people I met at Worthing Minis by the Sea car show, some of them personally owned some of the minis that were visiting the Worthingstein Gardens where Worthing Minis by the Sea car show took place, and got the chance in talking to them and conversed in a friendly conversation with them and all the rest of it. The only people who I were worried for about, the only mini car owners, or in particular the vintage mini cars, the mini car owners I was worried for, certainly in particular the vintage ones, were those who stood of quite a tall height, just to say, because even I had to be, although despite only being 5'8" in height, I had to be careful getting to get inside the driver's seat of a mini car, just to sit in it, just for the fun, not to drive off in it, just to say. I had to be rather careful getting in. I think in order to get in and getting away with caution, I think you'd have to be probably about 5'6" at the very tallest in order to get into the mini car, sitting in the driver's seat without needing to take things carefully. But I would think if you're taller than 5'6", I think you'd almost certainly have to be careful to clamber inside the driver's seat of the mini car, particularly the mini vintage car, but obviously ask the owner of the mini car permission first before sitting in the driver's seat of a mini car. Certainly my recommendation I would most importantly be issuing out. And obviously I did meet a rather tall couple who had a vintage mini car, and I was like, oh my god. I mean, they were fairly youngish of age, I think it was. I mean, I'd seen them when I attended. I think they got to the event before I did. It's almost likely they got to the event before I got there that very day. And they were just talking to a few other people and all that, but I was a little bit worried, I must say, talking to them, I must say. I thought, well, don't know. It looks like they're talking to other people who have the same interest or values they have, and it could well be dodgy. That was the conclusion I made, but I should never have came to that conclusion. I never should have been worried about them, because I was worried they might not be very nice and all that, or might be somewhat badly temperamental and all that, and somewhat temperamental personalities can sometimes give a few great drawbacks, but not always, just sometimes. But I certainly do not mean any offence or mockery saying this. But I did converse in a conversation with a mini car owner. It was a lady, I think it was. She was a mother, I think, with a nice young boy. A very, very nice little young boy, who, I mean, obviously he was much younger than I was, and I think she was quite short in height, I would assume. I think she's almost likely shorter than I was, but she was very nice, and I was like, it's certainly a very nice mini car. But then I did ask, rather importantly, I was like, are you sure people are allowed to sit in the mini car? And she said, oh, of course they can sit in, but I just would not let them drive it off. I was like, oh, okay. I was like, well, that's very, very important that you do not let them drive it. Certainly do not give them the keys to your mini car, which would certainly be an absolute big, disastrous no-no. It would be highly disastrous and highly dangerous should the mini car owners hand over the keys to people who want to sit in the mini cars when observing and spectating the event and all that, particularly observing the mini cars that are parked on display at the Worthing Minis by the Sea car show in Steen Gardens, Worthing, that is. And so I sat in the car, and and as chance had it, the taller couple, I mean, it was before I found out they had ownership of a vintage Mini car, which they'd taken down to the Worthing Minis by the Sea car show. I mean, because they were of youngish age, I thought they were just a youngish couple, or either youngish couple or youngish friends, until I found out they were a couple whilst attending the event. I would have thought they were just people who liked mini cars and just decided to attend just for the fun. Never could I've known until found out later. I'll try not to spoil it too much, but as chance had it, if I may continue the story, the taller couple suddenly did catch sight of me sitting inside this nice motherly lady's car. Well, she wasn't motherly to me, but I would certainly not expect that. For those of you who are watching, do not expect the lady to be motherly towards me. I certainly would not expect it either way. And I have actually met someone who's a little bit too motherly, but it was not the mini car owner, by the way. I may or may not have spoken to her before, but it's one of the Covet ladies who's a little bit too motherly, but that's a completely other story and all that. Oh dear. But they did catch sight of me sitting in the car, and it was the lady who was like, wow, this really does, he was like, oh, it really does suit you, you sitting in the mini car. I mean, I was partially hard of hearing, but I just about had it. I was like, thank you. But I was looking at both people. But then I stood up, and she's seemingly rather warm, friendly personality and all that. I was like, my apologies if I did not quite follow, but did you say it suited me sitting in the mini car? I said, oh yes, absolutely. So yeah, absolutely. As far as I can remember, that is. And all that. I said, well, this is the first time I've ever been, because I only just found out about it at the Pardon Park rally. I was not just telling her and her either husband, partner, whoever he is, I would assume husband or partner, and all that. And I was talking to not just them, but also the owner of the mini car about how I found about it being the first time I'd ever attended Worthing Minis by the Sea, as I only explaining to them that I had only just found out about Worthing Minis by the Sea when myself and my best friend David Scott were attending the Pardon Park rally back in July of 2022, nearly 2 months prior to the Worthing Minis by the Sea car show. And I would assume they were rather astounded, yet rather interested in what I had to say, but I cannot quite remember. I'll have to ask them again if they are attending Worthing Minis by the Sea of 2023, the 2023 Worthing Minis by the Sea car show. That's if they are attending. I would have to ask them. But they were nicer than I initially realised, I have to say. Although I think the husband did once accidentally walk beside me, but he didn't mean it. I was like, oof. I said, I'm terribly sorry if I stood in your way. He was like, no, don't worry, and gave me a friendly pat on the shoulder, as if I was like his mate and all that. I mean, people probably his age would more likely say mate than friend or companion, what have you. But although looking as if they were not nice people, they were nicer than one could initially realise. No, really, I could have very easily had them as my friends, that couple, had I known them earlier, before Worthing Minis by the Sea event. But with a vintage mini car, and plus they were both quite tall in height equally. I mean, I was like a bit worried for them getting inside the mini car, given their height. I'm not sure. I cannot quite. I can only give a rough I can only be estimating their heights. So I'm not sure if I ever really asked. I cannot quite remember. You know, I remember some things I've said, but I don't always remember everything, just to say. But I do remember generally most things, but not all things, as one could dare expect. But I think the lady with the couple I'm referring to, despite having a reasonably small vintage mini car, the lady, I'm not sure how tall she was, most certainly taller than I was, I have to say. Assume she was about, I would assume anywhere between, I would likely assume she's probably either 5 feet 10 and a half or 5 feet 11, something like that. So tall, quite a bit taller than I am, I have to say. And she was wearing completely flat shoes and taller than I was. I would assume she was in round about the 5 feet 10 and a half, 5 feet 11 range. I never asked. I don't know. Well, I don't know if I asked or not, but I would assume she was in that range. She certainly did look as if she was quite a bit taller than I was. And I'm not sure if it's the husband. I think it's either a husband or faithful partner. He was only anywhere between, I'm a bit tall. I would assume he's probably about 6 feet 1, something like that. Well, maybe not quite 6 feet 1, maybe around about half an inch shorter than 6 feet 1, I would assume. So let's just say my estimating guess is he was roughly just about half an inch over 6 feet in height is my rough estimate, but obviously I would have to ask him, not entirely sure. I don't think he could be any taller than half an inch over 6 feet or any taller than 6 feet 1, I don't think. So that's my rough estimate, but rather tall and a rather youngish couple, and yet I found out and learned until at the end of the Worthing Minis by the Sea car show that they personally have acquired ownership of a classic vintage mini car for themselves. Rather surprising given their youngish ages, I must say. I think they're a little, I would think almost likely they're a little bit older than I am, but I would almost likely well, they looked younger than the mother and her son, who went to the Worthing Minis by the Sea car show when she was talking to me about her vintage mini car, I think it was, and that I sat in and when I was talking to her and the couple. But yes, despite their tall heights and the rough estimates I could give of their heights as far as what I could see when I saw the two of them, despite being taller than I am, they had a little vintage mini car they'd acquired ownership of, and I was like, oh goodness, I was like, I hope you two be careful getting in, because although 5 feet 8 in height, I had to be careful getting inside the mini car, because I'm a bit tall to get inside. And she was like, well, we're tall, and as an added advantage to make things a little easier, we just pull the seat back so that we could get in okay. I was like, well, you know, that's good thinking. But then I exchanged and bid my goodbyes to them. I said, well, and they're like, well, we'll see you next time. I said, time at Worthing Minis by the Sea car show, as far as I can remember, that is, cannot exactly quite remember. And but I was like, hopefully I will be attending the Worthing Minis by the Sea car show in 2023. And I was like, and I said, if I am there, I would certainly look out for the two of you. And but if you are there and if I'm there, well, I'll certainly see you there. That's what I said. As far as I can remember, I cannot quite exactly remember, but they can certainly remind me for themselves in case I am very, very wrong. That's if they're watching, that is. And also I did sit, there is actually a photograph of me sitting inside the driver's seat of a vintage classic mini car, that is, but it was not in ownership of the tall couple. It was in ownership but without further ado, this is now the very end of the video, of the last video of the Worthing Minis by the Sea car show event from 2022. Just to say, but my apologies if I kept this video too long. But before this video is ended, there will be a photograph. I will represent the photograph of me sitting in the mini car, but it was not from the tall couple as mentioned. It was from an older man, I think it was. I'm not sure if he was old or middle-aged, but I'm sure he will remind me. And he let me sit in the driver's seat of his mini car, and I thanked him for it and was most grateful, almost certainly. Just to say. But he wasn't as tall as the tall couple, just to say. I think he was a little bit shorter than I was, just to say. I think he was around about my mother's height, something like that, as my mother's not very tall. Well, my mother's shorter than I am, which is why I say she's not very tall. Quite so. But I was certainly thankful of him to have let me sat in the driver's seat of his owned vintage classic mini car. Just to say, I was certainly most thankful indeed. And yes. I mean, I would, it certainly is the Worthing Minis by the Sea car show, an event I would want to attend every year it's taking place, almost certainly, yes. But thanks everybody for watching, and here is to Worthing Minis by the Sea car show for 2023, should it be going ahead. Ta-ta, another time. From Foxy. Oh.